the gang's all back together.
We're here.
Back to our normal Workshop Wednesday with Kate and Carrie and myself, also Dan. Brought to you by School of Bookkeeping, and we're coming in for a landing with payroll fundamentals finally. Yeah, sorry about making the change last week, but tis the season for traveling. Actually, I'm going to be gone next week and the week after, so we have to figure out what we're doing for next week's Workshop Wednesday. But we are coming in for our final approach, since we're talking about traveling. We're coming in for a final approach of payroll fundamentals, and we'll continue to talk about managing your QBO subscription on today's workshop. But Carrie, you just got back from out west, right? The Wyoming, Montana area. How was that?
It was phenomenal. And Idaho, can't forget them. You have to
Oh,
scoot.
yeah. Got your
We
fill of
did.
potatoes.
We stayed in Idaho. We drove through Montana on the way to Wyoming. Now try explaining that.
It was beautiful.
It definitely is worth going to. Now, ironically, after we left, it wasn't me, but a shoe and a foot floated up one of the springs. So they say do not leave the boardwalk.
Like a bodyguard?
Yeah. I don't think the person did not make it. I don't know the whole story. They said there was no foul play, so it must have been some person that didn't follow the rules that clearly say don't get off the boardwalk.
It was Yellowstone. It was I'm convinced it was Yellowstone. Someone at Yellowstone.
Wow.
So yeah. But it was neat. It was very, very neat.
Great. So we've talked about all the things dealing with payroll fundamentals. And so, last time we talked about the act of actually paying your employees, which is now like the culmination event of, why you do all this stuff is to actually pay employees. But then after that event, then you have to do something, right? Because there's activities and things that you need to do as an employer because you've paid somebody. So Carrie, what is that? What are you going to have to do as a business owner once you've paid somebody, since you do this sort of thing?
Yeah, there's a whole lot to it. You've got to collect. You're taking those withholdings out. So as a company, you have to pay those taxes into the federal and the state. And quarterly, you have to do unemployment returns. Annually, you have to do W-2s. You have to consider all the benefits and stuff if you're withholding anything that is paying for anything for them, garnishments, all that kind of stuff. So you have to basically tie down after you run those checks. That's just the first step. Then you have to make sure all those agencies and garnishments and so forth are paid.
Right. And this is why you do all the work, up front, the legwork up front to tell whatever payroll service that you're using what to do with those things after that, because we talked about the difference between the gross and the net, and there's all sorts of payroll items or things that go into increasing the wages and things that reduce the net salary or the net pay. So all of those things come into play when it comes to you've actually run the paychecks, and then to your point. The biggest thing that you want to be in compliance with is paying the taxes.
Yes.
And we talked about, how you set those up and using, telling whatever payroll service you're using to what schedule, that happens on. And then you also mentioned other things, like the other deductions, the garnishments, the health insurance. Those things need to be paid, and those typically all those things are, in accounting terms, are what kind of what kind of account, Carrie, I'm throwing you a softball pitch. Yeah.
What
So when you
kind of account? Yeah.
what, so like when you do those things, those are typically, not necessarily always expenses, but they're, liabilities, right? So you have to
Yeah.
do those things after that. So typically, in accounting wise, they'll come in as a liability and an expense. Some of them
Yeah.
could be both. Some could be a deduction and those types of things. So
And
all of the accounting side of that should be handled for you, right? If you've set it up properly, to do that, right?
so where I find customers get themselves into trouble is when they decide, hey, I'm going to switch payroll providers and oh, employee A no longer works here. I'm not going to worry about them. And they go and set up the year-to-date numbers, skipping all the people that, are no longer there, but they need to be in the report. So, or I'm just going to set it up today and forget about January through today. And that's where they find themselves into trouble. And then the third one that I find is customers that have a bad track record, like they've not been paying in years and years and years. So it's you can't you know a new payroll company would not want to take that on if they haven't paid their prior taxes. Kate can probably
Yeah, Kate,
tell us how that works.
do you see all sorts of things like that where it's pretty much those kinds of employers where they're either on it, they forget something like you're cooking and you forget the Italian seasoning or something, or they just are negligent or forgot that to make any payments.
I would say the biggest time it kind of slips under the rug is for 1099 and contractors, paying them because they're either paying them on Zelle, Venmo, Cash App, something like that, where they just don't have a full record. As far as W-2 employees, you can't come over to ADP unless you provide the year-to-dates. So even if you only played person once, maybe in March, completely forgot, it was just a working interview, something like that, we still need their complete employee information because we do their W-2s for the whole year. So there's no way to come on board with ADP without reporting everything unless you are trying to set it up. It's just like a brand new payroll and you don't have any reports. So you can't really work around that. I have seen times where when our team takes the year-to-date reports and they go to type it into the computer system and they go through everything, make sure everything balances out. There's been times where someone set up a 401k as like a pre-deduction where it should have been a post-deduction and things just don't match up like that, or deposits to the IRS are off. So if, like, for example, if the deposits are off, we have to get like in writing saying that they understand that ADP is not liable for this, that you guys were going to do it moving forward, or that they're going to make the payment. So there's like a lot of crossing the T's and dotting the I's as far as like getting the payroll actually set up.
Yeah, and that's nice that that you make that statement that you can't come over unless you have that. Do they have like a grace period to get that to you? Like, can they start running payroll and then no?
So the team. So when I gather all the information, I then submit that to the team. The team then can build out the account from anywhere to 24 to 48 hours. It's at that stage when it halts. So if they see that there was a Sally on one of the year-to-date reports and Sally was only paid maybe $20, we still need Sally's, at least her bare minimum, like her social security, her address, and her obviously first and last name. This way we can still be able to mail her out the W-2. We won't need like the direct deposit, we won't need direct deposit information. We won't need their salary, tax status, anything of that sort. But we'll need at least the bare information to be able to get the team to push it through to have the account built out. But they won't even start building out the account if they know they don't have that.
And that gives it makes it a little bit stressful, I think, for an employer who is choosing, especially if they're doing a weekly payroll, that they've got to do this pretty well coordinated, which is, I think, why a lot of businesses choose to do it at year end, right? Like so they can get a lot of this stuff going live, January 1, right? Is that what you find, Kate?
No, because then I'd be out of a job. They would only hire
Oh,
me in November and January. I would say, although January is our busiest time, but that's because everyone thinks it's the easiest
mm,
time to take over payroll. Even with like weekly payrolls, I would say out of my 2 years at ADP, I think maybe only once has a business owner not had at least the bare minimum information, to be able to send that over to get it pushed through. But they always have at least the bare information. And then if we need to push the payroll back maybe a week, that has happened once or twice. But that's just because just trying to get things back, and it's all about as soon as I get a notification from the team, I get it over to you. I can't guarantee how fast you're going to get back to me. So it just takes a little bit of wiggle room there. But I would say a lot of people tend to switch at the end of the quarters just because it's easier, less reports, or end of year because they think that's the easiest time. But truly isn't.
yeah, that's like there's never a good time, to do these sort of things. But it sounds like the year end makes more sense to do that. But to your case, it really doesn't make a difference. I've heard you say, the best time to do it is today. Right?
Just do it. Just pull off the Band-Aid and do it, because you're eventually going to make the switch anyway. And I mean, at the end of the year, then you have to deal with holidays and trying to gather all that information from your employees. If you don't have it, try to gather them around the holidays, around the PTO that people take around
Right,
then. So there's different ups and downs to every single time of the year.
Yeah, definitely some pros and cons. But so once you've submitted the payroll, then these taxes, liabilities, and other payroll deductions are needing to be done. Now, some people prefer to have control over that of when that actually happens. But if they go through ADP, that's you guys handle everything, right? I mean, and that's why you need that information, before you even start the payroll, right?
Yeah, the main reason we need that information is because ADP takes full liability. So once you run that first payroll, if you get a letter from the IRS, if you get a fine from the IRS, like ADP, that's part of the reason you pay for ADP is because of the liability. It's just one less thing for, the bookkeeper or their small business owner to have to worry about that. If you get that pretty little letter from the IRS, you just take a picture of it and you upload it right to run. And then the ADP team takes care of it and you don't have to do the communication back and forth. It's just they're the ones that works on it. So depending on turnaround times, depending on which department, different variances for that. But that's part of it.
So, Carrie, any as an employer, have you experienced these notices in the past?
Yes. Sure have. So when you leave your old
what does that
payroll,
feel like? When you actually
Not
get a notice, like,
not good. So when you leave your old payroll people, you have to make sure that they go away and they don't file zeros like Intuit did. So yeah, that's
although you did have some something to do with that.
not enough for Intuit to think that they should be filing taxes. I didn't sign any. I didn't give them a POA, but they took it.
Right? They were like, Carrie, we're gonna give you a nice little goodbye present.
Yeah. So
for those of you that have maybe not joined us before and heard, so Carrie went through the payroll certification training inside of her as a pro advisor because she's a CPA and she needs CPE credit, and so there's a few hours of CPE credit in the pro advisor training, and so she was going through the payroll certification, but in order to, fully embrace the whole thing, she went into her QBOA and turned on payroll.
well,
I
didn't officially turn it on, but yeah.
Right, but the system is such that you cannot enter in fake information in order to turn it on. So she ended up putting in her EIN and everything else that turns on payroll inside of the QBO payroll service, and there was no payroll run but she forgot to say don't file the the returns, and that's what happened. Is Intuit beat ADP to the filing and filed a $0 return. So are you still working on getting that resolved?
Yep. Yep. The SUDA people don't even answer the phone. It's just a compound of garbage. So yeah, it's still
You're
not
not bitter
fixed.
though.
No, no, not at all.
He
Nope.
enjoys
Want it fixed.
enjoys the extra stress in life.
Yeah. SUDA is not a fun thing. And then you add COVID to it, and nobody seems to be answering the phone. Their level of competency seems to have dropped. So yeah.
Mhm.
But as far as once you actually do run the payroll, and then you have to make
Yeah.
payments, right? So that is like the next thing to actually to occur is after you've run the payroll, then you need to make some kind of payments. And
Yeah.
in this example, you didn't run payroll, so you didn't make any payments. So that's why the $0 return ended up getting filed. Um, but in normal situations for a small business, once they've run payroll, then that's the trigger event to make tax payments. This could be the federal
Whether
withholding, the Social Security, the state unemployment, all of those things that are triggered by that, but also benefits, retirement plans, those types of things. Now, QuickBooks doesn't handle those things automatically. Um, with any of their payroll services. I think the retirement plan might do that now. Whatever they're working with guideline, but as far as ADP goes, Kate, they handle everything, right? Like once you submit the payroll, the small business owner is pretty much done, right?
Yep. Yep. The only thing they'll need to do is their tax filing at the end of the year, but we'll take care of the quarterly tax filings, and then all those reports are updated right in Run, so you can go view them. You can go view the deposits. You can go view the returns, everything of that sort.
So, assuming that you've set up everything properly up until this point, as far as the schedule and who needs to be paid to, then it's like getting dessert automatically after after the meal, right? It just shows up. It's not necessarily something you had to do. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that as while you're doing all this payroll setup, doing it properly and completely, so that something doesn't get missed, especially with those tax payments, because you don't want to see a notice show up in your mailbox, because then you have to deal with those types of things, which again holds no value to an employee to have to deal with something that wasn't set up properly. So any other thoughts, Carrie? Would you drop?
I dropped my phone. I'm just glad I didn't hit my foot. Yeah. So and doing payroll, if you understand it, you've set it up right, everything runs smooth. Da 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 da. There's just, I mean, to me, there's just not enough money in it to add those services at 100, 150, 200 an hour. It's just not worth it. So we like partnering up with ADP, and we also recommend the Intuit stuff so we can earn something on it. I like ADP because we earn money longer and more. But it's
I wanted to
just
throw this.
so much better.
Out there. So MJ actually said,
Oh,
my concern with their payroll is that we, the accountant or pro advisor, can't change local tax or state tax without contacting Intuit. It has to be changed in a future quarter, not mid quarter. Kate, how does that work with ADP? Do they, if there is a change, they don't. Do they need to do anything, or do those local or state taxes just automatically get updated?
They're automatically updated in the system. So when you go in and you put the employee profiles, like if it's for like a state of New York, how they have the city, they have then the subs, and they have like 84 different taxes that they pay into. If there's any sort of government change or anything that the local or government or federal government is changing, that automatically updates. If there is something where you want to do like an additional withholding, that you will manually have to go in and update. But if it's something that is a law, that is regulated, that has to be changed, ADP takes care of that.
So
does someone even need to contact them about it, or is it more just that's what you do?
That's just what you do. The only thing I've seen that you would have to manually change is like how on the W-4s that it used to say just like one dependent or two dependents, and now it's based off of like $2,000 and $400. That if you want to update it, you have to manually update because they don't know how old your children are that you claimed prior. So that's the only thing you have to manually update, but you don't have to change the newest form. You can keep the old form.
but would that be triggered, now that I've seen what ADP looks like as an employee, if I were to move into a new part of New York, say, and I switch into a different local district, that would be changed based on my address. So if I went in and updated my address, would then the system know for the next payroll to withhold?
Yeah. So I'll use me for an example. So I lived in Florida for a year, my first year at ADP. And then my second year at ADP, I lived in South Carolina. Unfortunately, South Carolina has more taxes than Florida. So when the system updated my address to be the South Carolina address, it automatically took out more taxes. There was no me trying to get around that. It just happened one day. I just looked at my paycheck and I was like, oh, it's a little less than it used to be. So that just automatically updates. It's based on the address in the system. So the person has to go in, kind of you're relying on them, but they do have to change their address because legally you have to.
And then, to MJ's point, yeah, I mean, that's a lot of kind of headaches for an accountant, bookkeeper, or someone to handle if they don't, one, it's now, okay, now I need to call and get it taken care of. And, to Carrie and I's point, it's a roulette wheel of, who you might get a hold of to handle that. Now, if you're a school of bookkeeping member and your quick answers, you can have us reach out on your behalf. A little plug there, but that's what we're here for. But yeah, we can take some of that burden off of you as well. But then it comes down to privacy, right? Like who is contacting, because there is such there's so much personally identifiable information when it comes to payroll. Everyone's got a social security number that's running through payroll, the federal EIN, all of those account numbers. So it could potentially be a roadblock, especially if you're not the assigned person to be able to do the talking on behalf of your client or the business itself. This whole conversation has started to remind me I have to reach out and see if we can't get some people switched around and what it takes to do that. So that could potentially be, an obstacle of even getting it done. And Carrie, is that something that an accounting professional should bill for, right? Like the obstacles that are in place when those types of things take place, happen, and they have to, basically talk on behalf of their client? I mean, does that get into a gray area?
I would bill. I mean, if you're having something that they could do themselves and they're using you to do it, definitely bill. If it's something I screwed up, maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's we're in the liability in engagement. Does that fall? Because some people will just check a box and say, I'll handle payroll for you. Right. And like they hear that, the business owner might hear that and go, okay, well, that's everything. So that includes this notice,
It shouldn't include the notices. That should
be explicit.
I did it. Like I said.
Right. Yeah, this is definitely one of those things where you could, live and learn, and there could be an educational cost of making sure that those things aren't spelled out. It's like there's warning labels on everything for a reason, because somebody did these things, right? Like,
yes,
you would look at don't eat that, because somebody ate it.
Contracts get changed all the time because somebody found a a way to get out from doing what they need to do, and so then the contract gets updated. So yeah,
Spoil it. They spoil it for everyone.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So I think our last topic in this payroll fundamentals, and we kind of did talk a little bit about it today, but really those what happens at the end of the year, the payroll forms, the quarterly form filings, and those types of things. So we'll talk about that on our next workshop Wednesday. So our last our next topic, just kind of moving into managing your QuickBooks Online subscription, is canceling. Right, that's Carrie's favorite topic. Right, canceling QBO because they're moving to desktop or something like that.
Oh, wonder why.
But you can manage your subscription. So we wanted to talk a little bit about what happens when you do cancel, and then show or demonstrate how you do that sort of thing. So when you cancel a QuickBooks Online subscription, it's important to note that it just doesn't go away, right? Like right as soon as you cancel, as soon as you cancel the QuickBooks Online, it immediately goes. Well, it doesn't immediately during its next billing, right? Whatever billing date that will be, because you've already whatever payment you've already made as far as your subscription is concerned, it will go inactive on that next billing date. So even if you do the cancellation, it is still active up until that next billing date. But on that day that it's supposed to renew, whether it's annually or monthly, your subscription will go inactive or suspended. And then at that point in time, it goes into a canceled state. Now, what happens to that data, right? So that's the question, right? So when you cancel your QuickBooks Online subscription, it will still be available there for a period of 1 year. Right. So even if you do cancel your subscription, you can log in. You'll be able to see your QuickBooks Online in a canceled state and run reports and do all sorts of things that you might need to do. If you still need access to that data for purposes of maybe doing your payroll, switching your payroll to something else, and you need to run reports to be able to do that. So you can see your QuickBooks Online subscription and your data for a year after you do cancel. And that begs the question, like, well, what can you do before then? Like, so some people will go in, resubscribe for a month at near the end of that year, and then cancel it again. And then now you've got another year of read-only, access. So that's an option, right? So you can continue to do that, but if you do let it lapse, then it gets removed from your login. So you don't necessarily see the data at all. So you won't be able to access the company. Now, is it really removed? Actually, no. So there is a way to resurrect a deleted company, as long as it's not deleted off of the server. But you have to reach out to Intuit to do that and get it reconnected to your login. So please don't do that. Right? Don't let it go, or don't let it lapse, because it's quite an ordeal, right? It's like that $0 return that you're talking about. Just a simple thing that could have been avoided. But if you don't need it anymore, of course, it's just going to disappear off of your login, and then it will you will be unable to access it from your login. So I'm actually going to see. I'm going to switch company here. I'm going to share my screen in a second so we can see it. Okay, yeah. Let me share my screen. I have 3 screens now. Let me make sure I'm the right one. So I'm in the office here. So when you go and you sign in, you're going to see at the top, if you're an accountant, you're going to see your accountant companies, and then you'll see QuickBooks Online companies, and then down here I've got my canceled companies. And if I wanted to access some of these companies, I could. right? These are in these are the companies that are in that state of they're canceled, but they're accessible in that read only state here. So let me go ahead and stop sharing so I can get into our favorite favorite company here real quickly. All right, so now I'm in our test upgrade downgrade client here. So in order to cancel your subscription, in this particular case, it's in a trial, so there is nothing for me to cancel. If I just let it lapse, as long as I didn't put in any billing information, it will cancel on its own. But you would go to the gear and account and settings, and then when that shows up, eventually, billing and subscription over here. So I have the ability, because it's in a trial state, to cancel the trial. So these areas here, the things that you can click on to do that, and you just hit cancel your trial. I'm going to continue to, and then it's going to ask you like 14 questions. No, I think it's only 4. Why are you canceling? This was just a demo company. You don't have to answer these things. You can just continue through these things, and just skip the survey and hit cancel. By
additional reasons.
Yeah. And then we cancel your trial, right? So that's it. So now if I go back into my billing and subscription, thinking, right? I have the ability, now I'm read only until a year from today. So I can still go into this company. I can resubscribe if I need to. So that's the way to handle that. So now I'm gonna pop on. I'm gonna close this. So any comments there, Carrie, while I switch companies?
I'm just curious what pricing they're going to offer you if you resubscribe.
Oh, if I resubscribe. Well, in this particular case, it was a trial, so it's just going to be. Probably the MSRP. That's an important thing too. If there is a promotion, and then you cancel the company, that typically is a trigger event to just keep you in the regular pricing. So you would lose any kind of promotion, because that's what I was going to talk about next, is managing the client bill, or the firm billed company subscriptions here. So I'm in here. So I'm going to go to subscription billing over here, because this is something that has changed recently. So I wanted to kind of point that out here. All right. So I'm in the accountant billed subscriptions, and there is now a drop down in here to collapse and expand certain areas of this billing. So this client actions, you would say, these are the things that you can do to the client, and you would notice canceling is not one of them, right? You can transfer billing to client, which will kick it out of your wholesale billing or pro advisor preferred pricing, firm billed, whatever it is that you want to call it today. But if you actually just did want to cancel the QuickBooks Online, you have to expand this and then choose subscription actions. So if you wanted to upgrade or downgrade, that's where you'd have to do that in here. But here is where you would hit cancel, because this subscriptions would transfer everything to the client, but maybe they don't need the plus subscription. Maybe they just need a payroll or QuickBooks Time or something like that. You wouldn't want to necessarily transfer everything to the client. You just want to cancel one of them. You have to expand this area, and then under subscription actions drop down, choose the option to cancel that. So just wanted to kind of point that out, that there is something unique when it's firm billed, just to keep you on your toes. So Carrie, any last thoughts? We've actually run a little over on our normal time of usually trying to keep this under a half hour, but we had a lot to talk about today.
We did. No, I'm just curious. So what I guess I learned from this was if you have a trial or even if you have something and you cancel it, as long as it's within that year, you could reactivate the subscription to get in there. And then that starts the clock back over if you then cancel. So that's one way to keep it rolling. Okay.
Yeah. So if you if you didn't do anything with that data and, still wanted to have access to it in online, like say you just started a new desktop company, or, they went to some other service that doesn't do a conversion, direct conversion, or their file was a mess and they, they just used that as an opportunity to start over. But you still had, some historical information to look at. Yeah, you could do it that way as well. So thanks for joining us for another fun-filled Workshop Wednesday. And we'll be figuring out what we're doing next week, because I'll be in Israel and I won't be joining. I don't know what time it will actually be when the workshop is. But yeah, we're not going to be doing that on location. So we'll figure out what we're doing. We may take a break. Or
might be a good idea, because I don't know the technology here.
Or we might have a substitute. Maybe we'll have Landon do the workshop with you and be a Dan substitute.
Okay.
Who knows? But we'll see you next time on the Workshop Wednesday, and you have a great week.
Good. Bye, everyone.
Have a great week.